Hi, I'm here with a dad, and his wife is expecting again, and they are just looking into their options between home, hospital, and birth. And he's just gathering information to help his wife make that decision. So, do you have any questions for me? Anything?
Well, maybe if you can just kind of describe maybe what expectations I would have at kind of each different scenario to start with, that would kind of help. So at a home birth versus a birthing center versus at a hospital.
What do you mean by expectations?
So what would we expect in a home birth versus as compared with a birthing center, also as compared with a hospital?
Like from
Differences?
Like from the provider or just all around?
From the provider, from you
Okay.
as a provider.
So in the hospital, then as far as the birth, then you would have the majority of the person that would be seeing your wife and you would be the nurse, and the doctor would come in and he or she, or you don't have to have a doctor in the hospital, you can have a midwife too, but the provider would check the charts every so often and come in and meet with you guys and see how you guys are doing. But the majority of your care during the labor and delivery would be by a nurse. And then also, so outside, before you guys ever got to the labor and delivery, then during the prenatals, then because hospitals are much, they have a lot more clients, then they aren't able to provide as much time for the prenatals as someone with less clients would do, and so the prenatals would be quicker, but they are still available for you to call anytime that you would need to. And then as far as the hospital as far as the birth center and home, then those are by a midwife. There are two types of midwife. Well, there's three types of midwife they are all legal in the state of Utah, and there's the nurse midwife, and they can work out of hospital in the birth center or at home. And there's a CPM, which is a certified professional midwife, and they can work in a birth center or home. And then there's a traditional midwife, which can only work at home. But so, in both out of hospital settings, the birth center and the home, then the prenatals would be more one-on-one, and your wife and you would be able to ask more questions and have more time to ask those questions and get to know the midwife and those that she works with better. And then as far as the birth, then your midwife would be there pretty much essentially the whole time. And if there was ever a need to transfer to a hospital, then she would be able to go with you and serve more as the doula role in those.
Okay. In a hospital setting, for example, then for me as the husband, am I going to be allowed to be with my wife the entire time during the birthing process, or would that be something that you as a midwife would be instead, or both can, or are there restrictions or whatever as compared to, I mean, obviously at home, then you're at home, or in the birthing center, but are there some restrictions like that? Like if I go, then is there only a certain amount that one or that either of us would be able to be with my wife? Do you get my question?
I do get what you're saying. The only time that I can really think of that you would be asked to maybe leave is sometimes, like if your wife decided that she wanted an epidural in the hospital, then they may or may not ask you to, the anesthesiologist may or may not ask you to go out, and they would just simply ask everyone to go out. But I've also seen times where they don't ask anyone to go out. It depends on the anesthesiologist. So it really would just be if the anesthesiologist said that, okay, you got to leave, and then you can come back after.
Okay.
But there shouldn't ever be a time where you're able to be, or where I'm able to be somewhere where you're not.
Okay,
if
that makes sense.
if a C-section was needed, They typically only allow one person to go back, and that, unless your wife says no, absolutely not, then it would default to you.
To the husband to go back. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, if we're having a home birth, then, like, at what point would you arrive in the labor, or like during labor or whatever? At what point would you come to the house, or what point would you be there?
Well, I would typically come when we know that labor is established, and it's not just early labor, unless you or your wife decided that you wanted me sooner, and then I would come and be there. Because sometimes just having the provider there gives a sense of peace and calm, and then labor can progress easily.
But essentially, there's just going to be, like, just essentially a lot of communication between us and you, and
Right.
to just essentially decide how quickly we need you,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly potential for false alarms and everything.
Right.
Okay.
They happen.
Okay. So have yeah, actually, so one of the questions I have is, if you have multiple clients, so what happens if you have more than one client that goes into labor, like, basically at the same time? Do you have, like, a backup midwife, or do you, like, so what happens in that case?
Yeah, I typically do work with another midwife that would be able to take over if I wasn't able to make it to one because I'm at another one. But I haven't yet had a time where I have two that are in labor at the exact same time, and there's a good chance that they're going to deliver about the same time. I've been able to make it to both when it's happened, where, like, one person will say, I'm in labor, and it's at the very tail end of another person being in labor, so, like, we're about to deliver a baby in that case. And
Okay.
so, but yes,
Some
I
pretty
do
close
have,
calls, but
I
never
do have
actually had them
backup. Yeah.
lined. Okay. So has there ever been a time when you've had to, like, when you've missed a labor for a client that you had, that you couldn't be there? Not necessarily because there's not a different birth, but for whatever reason.
I have, when I wasn't, so when labor progressed quicker than we thought it would,
Mm-hmm.
then I have missed it for that. But in those cases, then I would just stay on the phone and on the whole drive over there and walk mom and dad through. Okay, your baby's coming. This is what we do.
Yeah,
this
just
is
stay
this
on
is
the
how
phone.
you're gonna handle it, and I'll be there as soon as I can.
Okay. Okay. So what if you're, I guess kind of just a follow-up question on that one. So what if you're, like, literally not able to attend, if you're sick or there's a different emergency or whatever?
Then there
You would
be a
just have to
backup.
call a different midwife?
Yeah, the backup.
Okay.
Would you like to know the differences between the three settings, or do you think
Home-
you pretty much home
you mean just home
versus
for-
birth
yeah.
center?
No, I would like
versus
to know the
hospital?
differences. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's really not any one place that's right for everyone. It's just just depends on how you feel. If it's a low risk pregnancy, then it's just as safe to deliver in a birth center or home as it would be to deliver in a hospital. But
So,
It all-
sorry, so, like, if it's a low-risk birth, so what's an example of some things that would maybe be a high-risk birth?
preeclampsia would be a high risk. Twins are considered high risk. Breech is considered high risk. And then if the mom has health problems, like let's say she has a heart defect, that would be automatically a high risk pregnancy.
Okay.
And so, yeah, there's a whole list of things that could make it high risk, but most aren't high risk. The most are low risk, and yeah.
So then what's, I'll just let you kind of continue on then. What it would be like in a birthing center then versus in the
Well,
home setting?
so the birthing centers is more of a happy medium between the two. So while the midwife would bring as much as she could to a home birth, there are certain things at a birth center that she would have that she can't take to a home birth. Like she has a heat lamp to put the baby under if so
Okay.
if the baby needs to be revived or warmed up quicker, then she has that. There's also some other tools that can be used to help resuscitate a baby or whatever that would be at the hospital, which you might not have, or sorry, that you would have at the birth center that you might not be
Hospital
able to
or the birth
to-
center,
to
but they
take
would be
out-
have it at home.
to
Okay.
take at home with you. So that, but
But the birthing center though is still kind of designed to make it still feel as homey as it can or whatever, so that you're not don't have that hospital feeling or whatever. But
right.
you still okay.
Right. Well, and like something to consider when you are trying to decide where you would have the baby. It's, do you want a medicated birth, or do you want a natural birth? You are more likely to get a natural vaginal delivery birth, pain med free birth in an out of hospital setting than in a hospital setting. But if your wife would like pain meds like an epidural or like pitocin for whatever reason, then that's where the hospital would come into play and would be the yeah.
Okay. Would so between like a birthing center and a home, you had mentioned some of the high risk situations. Are all of those considered like for the same high risk situations that you kind of mentioned in a home birth? Do all of those same things apply at a birthing center, or are there some of them? So maybe just for example, twins. Is that something that's like considered high risk because it's twins, or if you're in a birthing center, would you have more help? So then it would be something that's okay. It's not necessarily considered high risk, or is that just like a scale? It's just high risk is high risk.
It is still considered high risk. So a traditional midwife can deliver a breech or a twin delivery.
Uh-huh.
A licensed midwife, so a CPM or a CNM,
Okay.
they can't do that at
So
the
it's
hospital.
okay. So that's just going to be like depending on what your certification or your level,
Right.
education level is, essentially. Okay. Okay.
Right. So yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so here, I guess maybe has there been, and I don't know, maybe that's kind of a hard question to think about or would answer or whatever, but has there been any like bad outcomes that you've experienced
In every setting or what?
well, I mean, just with, just in helping with deliveries and stuff, has there been, just any bad outcomes that you've had? So I guess part of my question is just kind of see what kind of situations you've experienced, and how you deal with, or how you would deal with certain types of situations.
Okay. Well,
So for example, every birth that you've attended, has every birth been just, oh, everything's fine and dandy, everything was wonderful, or has there been some other situations where it was extremely difficult or the outcome was bad? And and I don't know, when I'm saying bad, it's not necessarily like, like a death or whatever. I'm just meaning like, okay, this is bad, we have to transfer to a hospital or whatever, that's the things like that.
well, I've never seen a transfer to a hospital for an urgent reason.
Okay.
But I've seen some cases where the baby
You've seen transfers where
the mom was tired and ready to just have an epidural.
Okay.
Those are the
But
transfers that I've seen.
But
at
the
hospital,
transfers
but-
haven't been, okay, we have to stop here and we have to get transferred, call an ambulance or whatever and get.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then, you know, you have your pros and cons to every place, every hospital, every birth center, every home. That you have your pros and cons, and so it's good to weigh in. But
Okay.
okay,
Sounds good.
I think we're good. Let me know if
Do
you
I-
have any more questions.
Okay.
Bye.